All right, so any comments, feedback, pushback? We're going to use it. It's the worst thing I ever saw in my life. We're better than I thought. We're worse than we thought. Anything at all? Reflections, comments? Yes. Oh, and I've got the mic.
I'm Renee Cassidy with the Chester County Suicide Prevention Partnership, and I would suggest that for all of these, we are not doing any of them because we are so new that we are literally trying to generate the documents to do these things. And it's a real struggle to get us off on the right foot.
But we talked about life stage, didn't we? So you're at the infancy. Yeah, well, they're in utero, perhaps. But seriously, life stage is always a variable. But now you've got a roadmap.
My lollipop. Marisol Perez from the Fund for Women and Girls. What we found out is that we are not an A, B, or C. We can be an A+, but a C-, or a B++, which is almost an A. So it was, I wouldn't say hard, but it was. It's not like a clear an A, B, or C for us.
Well, and I think that's an interesting one because if you do it with your full board, you may find that people see the work of the board differently. And that's okay. That's okay. But if you think about, yeah, we know the legal stuff. Yeah, we read the board source stuff. Are we really being generative whenever we can? Because generative is, what is our sector going to need from us 10 years from now? And how do we do the work of today with excellence, keeping our eye on the future? And you can still be generative today, even though it may feel harder. But when we come out of this period, we're going to need to be excellent and relevant. And if you're not being generative, you're going to be behind. You're going to be behind. I promised a second worksheet. And the second worksheet is everybody's favorite work. So, fundraising. And we're all smart enough to know it can be the most significant speed bump. So, what I've given you is a list of 25 tactics that nonprofits can use to elevate their donor experience and their fundraising. So, in the time we have left, I don't want you necessarily to go through each of the columns. If you want to, circle the number that you believe your organization is using today. Then go back through and on the worksheet where you've got in the instructions, put a check mark next to each of the tactics you think your organization should start using, but you're willing to admit it takes more bandwidth. It might take more staff. It might take different tools. So if you as a board member are saying, yeah, we need to move in that direction, how are you as a board member going to find the resources to allow that work to happen? And then thirdly, my favorite, put a star next to the ones you're willing to do some heavy lifting for. So again, don't necessarily have to do all three columns. Just think about the ones you're currently doing, but then check next to the ones you are convinced you need to move into next that require more bandwidth. And then the star, the most important ones, what are the ones you're willing to do some heavy lifting for? And we have another 15 minutes. We'll come back together at 5 after. So, I'm wondering what you decided to take on. So here's my first question. How many of you put a circle, in other words, you're doing the things, on all 25? I heard a chortle. beside me. How many of you put a circle on 20? Anybody for 15? We got a 15? I think we got a 15. Put your hands up tall. Are you from the same organization or different organization? Okay. So we have 2 organizations that are doing 15. How about 10? Five. Between 5 and 10? We got some. These are the transactional ones that help you bridge into mid-level gifts. I'm curious some of your reactions to these, but also I'm curious which ones you put stars next to that you were willing to take on. Is anybody willing to share 1 or 2 of your stars? Okay, we got.
Hi, my name is Danny Murphy. I am from Uptown Knauer Performing Arts Center. We decided to put our emphasis into storytelling with real people, especially because of our performing arts background with Uptown. We have the opportunity to share something very personal, especially because all of our donors have some sort of stake in performing arts in some capacity. And tying everything back to our mission, where now we have bandwidth in order to get our story out there, create more peer-to-peer connections. So that is where we personally chose to put our emphasis.
Yay. Storytelling, it's branding. It's the part that can be expensive if you have staff doing it. And if you as board members are willing to figure out a way to do that consistently over time, your messaging is amazing. You said an interesting thing about, we know all of our donors have some stake in the performing arts. And I don't mean to be argumentative, but are you sure? I'm very serious.
Well, I'm saying our board members specifically. And
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
yeah, and looking at, we also have a studio program where, we see the direct impact of the children in the community that we're able to positively impact, and using those stories to then drive further membership and further community building within our organization.
Thank you. I think one of the risks is believing that donors have a particular motivation without the bandwidth to research the donor's motivation. And we have another comment.
That's a good point. Maybe I'll just be quiet. We are engaging right now in
research for donors.
quite a bit of market research for donors, as Heather is saying. But I also was thinking, we have some donors, for example, to back up Danny's point, I think that never even come to the theater, right?
Exactly.
They think that it is just important to have a theater.
Precisely.
In the community, that's a space for all, whether they are truly engaged with the arts themselves or not.
Thank you. And we do have to be careful with assuming what motivates people, because what motivates us and what motivates other people can be 2 entirely different things.
They wanted to know if you're a member, Robbe.
No, I'm not. I was.
Go get her.
I was. And somehow I fell off the renewal cycle. And it's been a while. I have no doubt he is, and he
Danny's
knows my
new.
phone number and my email. But I have an interesting story, and I grew up in a family that never went in a theater. We never went in a theater, we never went in a museum. I decided about 35 years ago, I was so boring, that I decided I would get a subscription to People's Light. And I did. And I went to this stuff, and I wasn't smart enough to understand it. Well, that was my take on it. And then I began to realize not everyone who loves theater loves everything they see. And I was never a donor to People's Light. And my daughter has a PhD in choral music. I spawned an artist. How, I don't know. I played the flute in the marching band, and I sing in the Westminster Choir, but I'm not like her. So where does she find her muse? In part, People's Light Project Discovery. So they would call me every year to ask me to be a donor, and I would say, no, thank you. One year they called me and asked me to support Project Discovery. And I said yes. This is at the dawn of time because their development office is amazing now. But to this day, they don't ask me to renew for Project Discovery. And that's the only reason I became a donor in the first place. Now I do it because I know it's important and all that stuff. And plus I have a little bit more money since she's done with school. But the thing's fascinating. Would you, if I had said no for like 5 or 6 years and suddenly they asked me for a restricted gift for Project Discovery and I said yes, that's important. But that takes bandwidth to track that. And it's entirely possible they didn't have the bandwidth at the time. But I haven't abandoned them. So another insight somebody want to share or a star you're willing to do? Yes.
Oh, I want to see Stephanie run.
Thanks. Just based on what you said about storytelling, I love events like this for sharing resources. I'm reading a book right now, which some of you may have already known about. It's called Stories That Stick. And it is Kendra Hall is the author. Somebody recommended it, just grabbed it. And it's not a nonprofit specific book. It's just a business book in general, but it talks about the 4 different kinds of stories that you should kind of have in your back pocket for different purposes. And I find it to be a great resource. I just wanted to share a book. I don't get any kickbacks from it, but it's been great.
Yeah, and I don't from Chait, Ryan, and Taylor either. I'm just a disciple for them. Anybody else? Well, you've got a punch list now. Oh, we have another one. Thank you.
Eric Lean, Chester County Food Bank. The favorite thing in fundraising for me is to make thank you calls. Now, I'm representing the food bank, which is the core support for all of the county's pantries. So we have a message to give, and the first time I reach someone and I say, I'm calling to thank you for a gift, I work with the volunteer with Chester County Food Bank, I get the most amazing response. It's because we have a story, we have a focus, it's a pretty easy sell, but it's something that I love to do. So that's my star activity.
And every single person on the deck or in the shallow end can make thank you calls. And if they can't do that, the soul searching about how important is this mission to me is perhaps something they need to think about. But also, they may be nervous about a script. So write them one. And you also have to be careful they don't go rogue and start giving I'm very serious. Giving information that they shouldn't give about stuff they shouldn't be talking about. So that's another part of the training. But now you've got an action plan. You've got the skeletal outlines of an action plan. And if you have staff, I would invite you to ask them what they think they're fully implementing right now. Because their list of what they're doing and your list of what you think they're doing could be different. And remember we talked about working in partnership with each other? When you're creating an action plan and adding bandwidth, they will have opinions about what tools and resources they need next. And also the sequencing of doing all these things. You can be a relationship manager even if what you're doing is the thanking piece, not the asking piece. So I would think about, and it's always, we've always done it that way. Well, we've always done that way is never good enough. It's never good enough. Even if you had circled all 25 as things you're doing, you need to keep them fresh. You need to keep evolving them. So creating an action plan is your homework. So these points, radical transparency, transparent about what your organization is doing and how you're doing it. It should be ethical leadership. That's a typo of epic proportion. Ditching the donor mystique. Donors are not these people who you absolutely need to be terrified of. They are lovely, wonderful people who care about the work you do, or they wouldn't be donating to you. And calling them and talking to them is a wonderful thing. Some of them won't want to participate in cultivation activities, and that's okay. That doesn't mean they hate you. It just means they want to roll differently. Treat your donors like partners and prioritize meaningful conversations. My favorite question to ask someone I don't know at all is, when you decided to make your gift to us, what made you decide to choose us? And then shut up and let them tell you. Because it might be very different than what you think. Storytelling, we've talked about storytelling. Be bold about what you need. Not about why you need it, not because our government contract got cut. But be bold about what you need. Respect them as individuals. Sometimes you've got a donor who wants to do something you're not going to do. Be honest about that. Help them find somebody else to give that gift to. And perhaps help them reframe their thinking, but don't do a cram down and be mean. Not everybody's going to want to do what you want them to do. Get rid of all the fundraising stereotypes and myths. There are so many bad ways to raise money. Do it the good ways, and you'll be much more successful. And if you've got an event shop where you are reliant on your event, and if you're over-reliant on public funding contracts, think about how to evolve into the philanthropy space as fast as you can. But you can't do it quickly. You have to do it deliberately and methodically. And I would also say, don't start something you're not willing to sustain. Because then, if you stop it, you're taking away the engagement with the individual, and they won't feel the love anymore, because you're trying to create joyful experiences for the donors. So whether you're working on your governance modes or you're working on creating a philanthropy action plan, I love this because, of course, the Lincoln Building and the Community Foundation. But don't backslide. Take pauses every once in a while. And I truly believe transforming a board takes 3 years. A year for the board to understand it and approve the action plan. A year for you to give everybody the training they need. And a year for people to figure out they're going to do that work. And if they aren't, you invite them to stand down with dignity, because they're holding back the mission that's more important to you than anything else. And like I said, he can find me because my name and phone number are in the slides. I am extraordinarily grateful for your participation this evening. I hope you will find the worksheets useful back in your own shops. And if you haven't already ordered Chait, Ryan, and Taylor, we already found it once this evening on Amazon. I know it's still there. But I think it's a very useful tool, but be very intentional about creating a plan with the right kind of incremental implementation so that you can take everyone along with you. Because the work we do is too important to the people we serve. And I know you're doing a great job. I hope you find this gives you a chance to do it even better. And I look forward to hearing about your success. And I want to thank Karen again for the invitation she extended to me to share this evening with you. So thank you very much.